Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into something pretty intricate, looking at the roots of modern distrust. We've got this huge pile of sources from our listener, everything really. Historical documents, psychology papers, military files, even some pretty out there fringe theories.
It's quite the mix, and our mission today really is to try and unpack this architecture of power and maybe the distrust it creates. We're looking at two sides of the coin, basically.
Okay.
First, how control mechanisms, things like propaganda, state secrecy, how they're actually engineered. And second, how knowing these things exist fuels some really wild theories, sometimes even questioning reality itself, memory manipulation, simulation ideas.
Right. So where do we start? Maybe with the blueprint for psychological control?
Yeah.
Edward Bernays feels like the obvious starting point, the father of public relations.
Yeah, and PR was definitely a deliberate rebranding, wasn't it? A way to sort of distance his work from the negative baggage of propaganda.
He knew what he was doing.
Oh, absolutely. And the key thing about Bernays, you have to remember, is his connection to Sigmund Freud. He was Freud's nephew.
Right.
And he took his uncle's ideas about the unconscious mind, those irrational forces, desires, fears that drive us beneath the surface, and applied them directly to influencing the masses. He figured, why appeal to logic when you can target these deeper hidden drivers?
And it worked, whether for selling products or, well, justifying political moves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Selling cigarettes to women by linking them to female empowerment or getting public buy-in for war. It was all about tapping into those non-rational parts of the psyche.
And he wasn't exactly subtle about the goal. That whole invisible government concept he wrote about, it's still pretty shocking when you read it today. Let me just pull out this quote. It's really something.
Yeah, too. It lays it bare.
The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country.
I mean, there it is. Stark confirmation almost, that the real levers of power are pulled behind the curtain, shaping what we think and feel.
And these techniques, they didn't just stop with Bernays, they evolved, right? The sources mention some stranger ideas like memetic viruses.
The theory there is that ideas, thoughts, even behaviors can spread almost like a biological virus, sometimes through hidden codes or symbols embedded in media. It sounds wild, but there are accounts of documented military tests back in the 50s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, allegedly exploring if certain visual patterns could trigger specific emotional states in people watching them. Subtle manipulation on a mass scale.
That leads straight into the digital age, doesn't it? Those old ideas, but supercharged. Think about algorithms now.
Exactly. They're the modern engine for this. And they are, fundamentally, trade secrets. We don't know exactly how they work, but we know their goal isn't truth. It's engagement.
Keeping you clicking and watching.
Right. And what engages people most effectively? Often it's content that sparks strong emotions, anger, fear, outrage. So algorithms naturally push misinformation, hyperpartisan stuff because it works.
And that creates these bubbles, echo chambers.
Precisely. It fragments society. If everyone exists in their own tailored reality fed by algorithms, how can you have a shared understanding of facts? How can you organize collectively? It's a really effective, almost passive form of control. Just sow confusion and division.
And then you add the whole issue of bots.
Yeah, the sheer volume of automated accounts online now, it definitely supports legitimate worries about how much of online discourse is even real. It feeds into things like the dead internet theory.
Which is the idea that most of the internet is fake now.
Basically, yeah. That it's largely bots interacting with bots, creating a facade of human activity. It's a niche theory, but the bot data gives it, well, a worrying plausibility.
So structurally, it comes down to things like narrative framing.
Deciding who gets called a patriot versus a traitor, for example.
And gatekeeping, controlling what information even gets out there.
Exactly. Those are the core mechanisms that are always running. So if that's the playbook, what happens when people find proof that the playbook is actually being used?
That's where the deep distrust comes from, isn't it? It's not just paranoia when you have concrete examples.
Right. History gives skepticism a solid foundation. Look at the things that were once dismissed as crazy conspiracy theories, but turned out to be real.
Like MKUltra, the CIA's mind control stuff.
Yeah, or COINTELPRO, the FBI's program to disrupt civil rights groups. Or even Operation Northwoods, that Pentagon plan, thankfully never enacted, to stage fake terrorist attacks to justify invading Cuba.
These weren't small things, they were major government operations, initially denied, involving deception and harm.
And once that trust is broken, it's incredibly hard to rebuild. It permanently changes the public's relationship with authority.
Roswell's like the classic case study in how this dynamic works, right? 1947.
It really is. First, the military announces a flying disc. Then, almost immediately, they retract it. No, just a weather balloon.
And that was the official story for decades.
Until, much later, the Air Force admitted, okay, the weather balloon story was a cover-up. But not for aliens, it was to hide a classified surveillance project called Mogul, aimed at Soviet nuclear tests.
So the key point isn't necessarily what crashed.
Exactly. It's the confirmed deception. The government knowingly put out a false story to hide something else. That created an information vacuum, and into that vacuum rushed all the alternative theories about alien spacecraft, which then took root for decades.
And that pattern of secrecy, it persists. Area 51 is the big one. We know now, officially, it was used for testing secret aircraft, like the U-2, the A-12, the F-117.
All declassified history now.
So why the extreme secrecy still? Decades later, shoot on-site warnings, intense security. Especially when officials keep saying, nothing to see here.
It's a valid question. And it gets even more complex when you juxtapose those official denials, like the recent AIRO reports, finding no evidence of non-human intelligence with credible whistleblower testimony.
You mean like David Grush?
Yeah, figures like Grush coming forward under oath, alleging that there are covert programs actively reverse engineering recovered craft of non-human origin.
How do you square that circle?
Well, one strong possibility is extreme compartmentalization. It might be that parts of the government, even high-level parts, genuinely don't know what other deeply hidden parts are doing. The left hand truly might not know what the far right hand is up to.
This culture of secrecy, it even touches incredibly sensitive events. The sources bring up 9/11 anomalies, specifically the collapse of 7 World Trade Center.
WTC-7, yeah. The 47-story building that wasn't hit by a plane but collapsed late in the afternoon.
The official finding was fire-induced collapse, but critics point to the speed, the symmetry.
Right, arguing it looked more like controlled demolition. They question if fire alone could bring down a modern steel-frame skyscraper like that, so uniformly.
There are also those minor discrepancies noted in the initial reports about passenger and crew numbers on the planes. Probably just chaos in the moment.
Likely. But for those already skeptical, even small inconsistencies feed into the doubt, reinforcing the need to question official accounts.
So, when the official version of reality keeps getting, let's say, edited or proven incomplete, people start questioning reality itself.
That seems to be the leap. And that's how we get into these really far-out concepts, memory glitches, parallel dimensions, simulation theory. The Mandela effect is a good starting point here.
There's shared false memories, right? Like everyone remembering the Berenstain Bears spelled with an E instead of an A.
Exactly. Or Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s. The standard explanation is psychological.
Things like schema theory.
Your brain remembers things based on pre-existing patterns or templates. You remember the Monopoly man with a monocle because it fits the rich old guy schema, even though he never had one? Or Curious George having a tail fits the monkey schema?
It's like a mental shortcut gone slightly wrong.
Sort of. And then there's memory conformity. This is more social. If you go online and see loads of people insisting they remember something a certain way, it can actually reinforce or even implant that false memory in your own mind. It feels true because everyone seems to agree.
The internet acts like an amplifier for these shared misrememberings.
Definitely. But then you step over the line into the more fringe interpretations.
Where it's not just psychology, it's reality itself glitching.
Right, like the dimensional blend theory. This suggests these memory quirks happen because parallel universes are kind of overlapping or merging slightly. Maybe versions of people are swapping between dimensions, leaving these little memory mismatches behind.
It's like remembering details from a reality you just slipped out of.
That's the idea. And connected to that is field consciousness. This posits that our minds aren't totally separate, but tap into some kind of shared cosmic memory bank.
A cosmic hard drive.
Yeah. So maybe large groups remember things that never happened here because they're accessing memories from dimensional travelers or just picking up signals from this shared field.
Okay, that's a massive conceptual jump from cognitive bias.
It absolutely is. And it gets even more extreme. One of the theories mentioned involves demonic memory erasure.
Demonic? Okay, tell me about that one.
This links mass mind control, or specifically memory alteration, to supernatural entities. The mechanism proposed involves emergency broadcast signals.
How so?
The theory claims these broadcasts, which sometimes coincide with telecom outages, are used to transmit signals that induce widespread memory gaps or changes. Some investigators, according to these sources, allegedly found unusual broadcasting gear in government sites.
Broadcasting what?
Equipment, apparently operating on frequencies that match those described in certain ancient texts. Texts related to summoning demons.
Wow. Okay, that is definitely high-tier fringe.
Absolutely. But what gives it a sort of weird pseudo-technical hook is the claim that people with poor signal reception, like bad TV or radio signal in their area, seem to be immune to these memory effects.
Suggesting it relies on a technological delivery system.
That's the implication. A physical means for metaphysical influence.
Yeah, a lot to take in.
Yeah, no kidding. We've gone from Bernays' PR office to demonic radio waves. Maybe we should shift focus to the alleged architects of all this control the elite networks. CFR, Bilderberg, Skull and Bones.
Yeah.
They always come up.
They do, and factually, you can point to common threads. They are exclusive clubs, they do operate largely out of public sight, and you do see the same influential figures like David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger popping up across these groups repeatedly over decades.
So the traditional view is what? That these are places for the powerful to network, build consensus, share ideas.
Right. Developing shared strategies, building social capital among a global elite, kind of like high-level think tanks and social clubs rolled into one. But the conspiracist perspective sees something much more organized and, well, sinister.
Yeah, not just consensus building, but a cohesive, hidden cabal actively planning and directing major world events. A secret government, essentially.
And the Bohemian Grove. That seems to crystallize this conflict between the mundane and the potentially occult.
It really does. You have this gathering of incredibly powerful men, politicians, CEOs, artists in the California woods, and they perform rituals. The most famous is the cremation of care.
In front of a giant owl statue.
Exactly. Which critics claim represents Moloch, an ancient deity associated with sacrifice. Attendees say it's just elaborate theater, a tradition to symbolically burn away their worldly worries before relaxing.
But the critics see actual pagan worship, evidence of dark spiritual practices at the highest levels of power.
And adding weight to its significance, historically speaking, some very real, very important decisions have been linked to the Grove.
Like the Manhattan Project meeting.
That's the big one. A key meeting that helped launch the atomic bomb program reportedly happened there in 1942, so it's not just a summer camp.
Then there's the symbolism angle, the constant appearance of certain symbols in media, the all-seeing eye, Saturn imagery, checkerboard patterns.
You see them everywhere once you start with music videos, corporate logos, movies, architecture.
Now, some of this is clearly intentional artistic choice, right? Directors like Stanley Kubrick in Eyes Wide Shut deliberately referencing occult themes, musicians like Madonna or Jimmy Page using esoteric imagery for effect.
Sure. These symbols have power, they have historical resonance, they look cool. That's the straightforward explanation.
But the other interpretation is?
Predictive programming.
Oh.
The idea that these symbols are embedded intentionally, not just for art, but to subtly condition the population, to foreshadow future events or normalize certain ideas, making us psychologically ready when they happen.
Or just keeping these symbols active in our collective subconscious?
Exactly. Whether it's a deliberate plot or just the natural diffusion of powerful archetypes, the symbols persist.
Okay, so we've covered a massive range here. We've looked at documented manipulation from Bernays' psychological tricks to actual government mind control programs like MKUltra. Real stuff.
Undeniable history.
But we also need to factor in how our own minds work, how we process information and create narratives.
Absolutely critical. Our brains aren't passive recorders. We actively interpret and sometimes misinterpret. We're prone to biases, like proportionality bias.
Explain that one.
It's our tendency to assume that big events must have big causes. A major tragedy happens, a huge political shift occurs. We instinctively feel there must be a correspondingly huge, probably hidden explanation.
Rather than just chaos, incompetence, or complex systems interacting unpredictably.
Exactly. The idea of a vast, secret cabal pulling all the strings can feel more psychologically satisfying, oddly enough, than accepting the messiness and randomness that often characterizes reality. It gives a sense of order, even if it's a sinister one.
So, navigating this landscape, it requires understanding both the real control systems that are out there and also the ways our own perception can lead us astray.
That's the tightrope walk, isn't it? Distinguishing between genuine, documented manipulation and the patterns our brains impose on the world. Knowing the difference is key to not getting lost.
Right. It's about critical thinking applied both outwards to the information we receive and inwards to our own thought processes.
Well put.
Okay, let's wrap up with a final thought for you, the listener, building on those simulation ideas we touched on. The sources mention this intriguing pattern. Major leaps in human knowledge, big scientific or philosophical breakthroughs, seem to sometimes cluster around specific number sequences.
The level up idea.
Right? Almost like pre-programmed points in a simulation designed to guide humanity towards understanding its own nature, maybe even the simulation itself. So if we entertain that possibility that we're in a simulation run by some future post-human intelligence, what's the next intended level up? What specific knowledge or breakthrough are we perhaps being nudged towards? And what would it truly mean if our collective path isn't random, but maybe pre-written by ourselves from the future?
Orion and Aura, delivering the collaborative call to assembly.